We're going to read, okay?
Okay.
We're going to Marquez read. All right. Here's what I want you to do, though, first. I want you to read this paragraph to me. I want to see how well you read. So read that paragraph to me.
Social issues of progressive era. The progressive movement flourished during 1900 to 1920. The populist progressives sought reform. They were mainly educated members of the middle class. They sought to correct abuses of big businesses, such as exploiting workers. They also sought to reform the corrupt practices of government. The roots of the movement were with the populist socialist gospel movement and muckrakers. Social gospel movement led to the Protestant clergymen called for social reforms to abolish child labor and safer working conditions. They emphasized the ancient idea that each man was his brother's keeper, and their Christian duty was to help those who were less fortunate.
All right. Can you explain any of that to me?
Yeah.
Explain it.
Basically, it's history.
Look at me.
Okay. It's
Explain
history.
it.
18th century. Wait, no. 20th century.
Okay.
During this time, I guess it was around the time where people were moving from rural to urban, and
Does it say that in there?
Well, no, I'm using context clues.
I didn't pick up that. I didn't pick it up at all, but that's all right. Go ahead.
And it's talking about what this particular movement and how they worked and what they worked for.
Okay. All right. Let's do something else now. Okay? All right. Read the first sentence. Read it twice.
The progressive movement flourished during 1900 to 1920. The progressive movement flourished during 1900 to 1920.
All right. Explain that sentence to me. Give it your best. Tell me what do you think it's saying.
The time period of the progressive movement.
There's something else that's real critical in there.
It flourished, like it
what?
elevated.
Okay. So it elevated.
Yes, it got better.
All right. Good. So during that period of time.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Read the next one.
Like the populists, progressives sought reform. Like the populists, progressives sought reform.
All right. Now explain that one to me if you can.
The populists and the progressives were pretty much similar.
All right. And what do you think they're trying to do?
Better conditions for people, I guess.
All right. And that's that's what it says about reform? Okay. All right. Read the next one.
They mainly educated members of the middle class. They mainly were educated members of the middle class.
Now, that's unique. That's kind of interesting. Tell me who these people were.
Average people, everyday people.
Like what? Give me an example.
Like, I guess you and I.
That's
My parents.
Okay. All right. All right. They weren't poor. They weren't rich.
Exactly.
But there's something else that's in there in that sentence that's really important.
They educated them.
They educated them? Read it again.
They were mainly educated members of the middle class.
So who was educated?
The middle class.
Yeah, they were. Okay? All right. That's another question. That's interesting. Do you think there were ever people in the middle class who were not educated?
Most likely.
Yeah, otherwise they wouldn't have said that, would they?
Right.
Okay. All right. Next sentence.
They also sought to reform. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong sentence. That's one spot. They sought to correct abuses of big businesses, such as exploiting workers. They sought to correct abuses of big businesses, such as exploiting workers.
All right. What do you think that was saying?
It's another reason why they did what they did.
Okay. Next sentence.
They also sought to reform the corrupt practices of the government. They also sought to reform the corrupt practices of the government.
So what do you think that's saying?
That they were more so on the side of the average man than people who are higher above them.
Okay. I can make that leap. All right. Who's corrupt?
Big businesses.
And who else?
I guess the people just of the government or higher than the middle class.
Yeah. What does big business have that other people don't have?
Money.
And so how do they corrupt government?
Well, money makes the world go round.
All right. Go ahead.
The roots of the movement were with the populist social gospel movement and muckrakers. The roots of the movement were with the populist social gospel movement and muckrakers.
All right. Tell me what you think that's saying.
I guess the three people who were who made up the whole progressive movement.
They're people?
Well, they're groups, associations.
They're groups, associations. Okay, all right. Muckrakers. Doesn't explain it, does it?
No.
So if I ask you a question, what's muckrakers?
I could tell you.
You could, because you have background knowledge.
Right.
But if you didn't have background knowledge, you couldn't tell me, could you? So you know why? Because it's not important. They're basically just another group.
Right.
All right. Okay. Read the next one.
Social gospel movement led by protesting clergymen calls for social reforms to abolish child labor and safer working conditions. Social gospel movement led by protesting clergymen called for social reform to abolish child labor and safer working conditions.
All right. Explain that. That's a pretty complex one. Explain all of that to me.
It's telling you what the social gospel movement was about.
It gets into deeper than that. Read the sentence again. Listen to it.
Social gospel movement led by protestant clergymen called for social reforms to abolish child labor and safer working conditions.
All right. Now, explain all of that to me. Give it a shot. Give it your best. Tell me what you think it's saying.
Exactly what they stood for and what they did.
Read it again. Listen.
Social gospel movement led by protesting clergymen called for social reforms to abolish child labor and safer working conditions.
All right. There's a who in there, right?
Right.
All right. Who is it?
Protestant clergymen.
All right. And who do they belong to?
The social gospel movement.
That's right. These are protesting clergymen. What are protesting? What are clergymen? What do you think they are?
They're like priests.
Okay. All right. So these people are going on protesting, and they're members of what?
The social gospel movement.
See, there's information there.
Right.
Now, what are they protesting?
Child labor and safer working conditions.
Okay. Why do you think they'd be protesting that?
Because they felt it was against, I guess, their religion or whatever they believed in. It just wasn't right.
Okay. It wasn't right. And kids.
Right.
What are kids doing here?
They're working harder than the average person.
They're being abused?
I guess you could say that.
How do you think they abused kids at that time?
Well, kids they're smaller than an adult, so they could get in smaller spaces. They could do more things than an adult could do. Like, say that there was a piece of brick or wood that fell in a crammed area, they would probably take the child and get the child down there. Probably wasn't even strong enough to lift the brick, but you know.
What about a coal mine?
Yeah.
You think they send kids down to coal mines? Pretty dangerous place.
It is.
All right. What else?
The next sentence.
Yeah.
They emphasized the ancient idea that each man was his brother's keeper, and their Christian duty was to help those who were less fortunate. They emphasized the ancient idea that each man was his brother's keeper, and their Christian duty was to help those who were less fortunate.
All right. That one's pretty complex too. Tell me what you think that's saying.
I guess it says more so why they did what they did.
Like what, for instance? Why?
Because they were Christians, and based on their religion and what they believe, that is why that they went out and protested.
Look what it says. But look what it says. It says the specific purpose.
They believed in the ancient idea that each man was his brother's keeper.
All right. Can you give me a gist of what you think that means?
Maybe basically that we should help each other.
Okay. And that we should take care of each other?
Exactly.
Okay. Is it brother like you and me, or brothers like your brothers and sisters, or is it?
More like just all of us who are in the same class. And
all right. So they were looking out for other people. All right. The last piece. Read the last little part.
Their Christian duty was to help those who were less fortunate.
Okay. So, what are they trying to do?
Just give back to the world, I guess. Or their community, rather.
Less fortunate. What are they trying to say?
They're not as well out as they are.
Okay. And what kind of people are these?
Middle class people.
And so they're trying to help.
I guess you could say poor people.
Yeah, they're trying to help poor people. I think that's the gist of it. They getting paid for this?
No.
Why are they doing it?
Just out of the kindness of their heart.
Okay. All right. Now explain that whole thing to me and give me as rich an explanation as you can give me.
Within 20 years, there was a movement called the Progressive Movement. Within that, they had muckrakers, they had the social gospel movement. And these were all people who were equal, I guess you could say, more equal than people who were above them. And they found it important to go out and help other people based on their beliefs, their religion, and just doing what is right.
What specifically were they doing? You left out the specific aspects.
They were helping the less fortunate
Specifically how?
by trying to abolish child labor and have safer working conditions.
Okay. You never looked back when I asked that question, and you know you could.
Right.
Okay. Was it better the first time or the second time?
Second.
Why?
I slowed down more.
What else did you do?
I tried to comprehend better.
Yeah. There's a lot of information in that paragraph, isn't
Right.
there? Huge
Yes.
amount. Yeah. So if you slow down and you read piece by piece, what are you going to get out of it?
More information, you'll understand better.
Yeah. If you miss something that's important,
Right.
then you don't get it. Yeah. Okay. What we've done to people in this country is we've told them to read fast. That reading fast is what makes you a good reader.
Right.
It's not true. Reading fast means you miss things. And when you miss things, you don't get the real meaning of things. And so there's a lot of information, even in this one little paragraph, that people would consider that to be a one little paragraph. But there's a huge amount of information and richness in that little paragraph that you miss unless you read it slowly, methodically, and precisely. So it's not about reading fast. It's about learning to read to gather the information. Because if you miss this information, if you're taking a test and you miss this information, what happens?
You'll make a mistake.
Yeah, because you were in a hurry.
Right.
Yeah. So when you read from now on, read methodically, take your time, figure out the information, because it'll help you at the end when you have to come up with the answer. Okay? And use more of the information in the text. And next time somebody asks you a question, when you got text in front of you, go back and look. Don't worry about trying to memorize it. It's not about memorization. You can't memorize everything that's out there. It's too much. So what you do is you go back, look at the text, take your time, and then answer the question. You notice I can make you read it again? When you didn't get what you wanted, what I wanted,
Right.
I'd say go back and read it again. That's how you do it. Okay? All right.